Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lost Sheep Podcast. I'm Nazario Pangallo, here with
Evan Hebert.
And Bissot.
And welcome back, folks, to episode number 46. We have a very special guest who I am going to allow Cole Bissot to introduce here today.
So, this is Gio. I'll let him tell you guys more about himself, but I'll kind of give a little brief intro of how I know Gio. So let's just take it back all the way to fifth grade. What is it, sixth grade or fifth grade? Sixth grade, Sacred Heart. Gio came to our class, and he was my desk mate for the entire year, funny enough. And so I kind of got to know him from that. And then high school rolled around, and we decided to go into some sports together. So soccer, cross country, all the jazz. And it was great getting to know him and getting to experience you. So would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and just your spiritual journey?
Ooh, all right. Yeah. So basically, in general, I was born in Virginia. Troubles in the family, so bumped down out here to Alabama, Coleman. Ever since then, just basically been went to public school, I think 2 years here, but stick to Sacred Heart and St. Bernard, both Catholics. But spiritual journey wise, like, I think it started this year with Seek, where like it just sudden conversion of like time to fix my life, time to do stuff. But like honestly, it's kind of like looking back at my life, it's always been something a part of me, like that I realize now. Like I remember in I think like first grade or second grade or kindergarten, early on, I used to go to the library up in Virginia and the school library. I remember I used to, those like Bible stories for like little kid stuff. Yeah. I used to always like go there and like look for them, get them, sometimes even like reread a lot of them. It's funny because like like it's the story of Adam and Eve, right? Like how they're kind of naked. Yeah, like children's books kind of hard to like describe it with like especially pictures. And I remember the librarian, she got like worried about it, like because I got that book a lot, so she ended up asking, "Hey, why are you reading this?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, I just like it." But yeah, anyways, though, yeah, like ever since I was little, I was like attracted to Bible stories, learning about the Bible, and that's kind of stuck with me for like ever since then. And like especially like going to Catholic school, I learned more about the church. And like I remember still to this day, it was like you remember Miss Flunky?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
She is funny. There's a kid in our class that fell asleep one time, and she woke him up and asked him why he fell asleep, and his excuse was he was praying. So, yeah. So, yeah. No, she's a funny one.
yeah, but like it was in her class because she taught religion. But I remember we were reading a book she gave us, and one of the things it said in there was like First Timothy 3:15, which was like, I think she asked us or the book asked us like, what is the pillar and foundation of truth? And then like reading it and realizing that it's the Bible verse literally says the church is the pillar and foundation of truth. That's where like the second kick kind of came in, where I realized, okay, the church is important. I need to start paying attention to it more, look into it more. And again, that was like in eighth grade. So like from then, like literally beginning, I had like curiosity of the Bible, and when that happened, curiosity of the church. And like ever since, well, I mean, high school, why we had great religion teachers, really great ones. But for some reason, I had the curiosity in me, and every once in a while something would stick at me. But me being like a high school student, I wasn't paying attention much, naturally. But like still like some of that stuff just stuck to me, but I still wish I paid more attention.
Yeah, one of the real quick stories, we had our morals and ethics teacher used to give us like books that we would have to read throughout the semester, and there was one called A Tale of Two Cities, which nobody ever read. But
I
we
love that
did.
book.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite books.
And so like we read it. And so Gio and I this was before we switched to freshman PE. Somehow we got into it senior year, which was a blast. But we used to have just a study hour, and so we would read it together and we would go through it, highlight it, and then we would talk about it for like 30 minutes after. It was really sick. It was fun, and we had a blast doing that. But yeah, that was just one of my fondest stories that I got to use. But yeah, so yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. But yeah, like ever since like high school ended, and I had that curiosity in me for the faith in general, Bible and the church. And right when high school hit, it literally felt like a make or break moment because as like I don't know the statistic, but it's something high. But basically college students or anyone after high school, they have like a really high rate of like leaving the church or something like that. Yeah. So like for me, it really felt like a make or break moment again. Like either I would fall in love with God, fall in love with his church, his people, his children, or I would just never meet God again, never love him, forget about him. And it was really scary to think that way. And like I was always, ever since then, I was forced myself to be a part of the things. And like it wasn't really like
Sorry.
smug
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I gotta
But
open
yeah.
my hands up a little more. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But yeah, like I forced myself to do stuff, be more part of the church, because for my family, it was honestly after COVID, we stopped going to church, and it was like a really sad moment because I still wanted to go to church. I felt like I needed to, but never did. So like forcing myself to do stuff really helped out. Like the first thing I did was signed up to join my church choir band just to have an excuse to go to church, just so I could go to church. And that worked.
You see that look from Cole? Did you know
I
that,
did not. I
Cole?
did not see it in the look.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know
Okay.
you were in that. That's
You
kind of
like
cool.
Really?
he like literally you sat there and he was like,
I didn't know that. That's kind of cool.
This guy likes music.
Yeah, I do like music. Yeah,
No, I
continue.
only played guitar. Like to this day I cannot sing. But like I only played for the guitar part. But
Cole? Do you know he plays guitar?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
We
okay,
we
okay.
like all kind of picked up the guitar at the same time. We had
classic high school boy behavior.
we had a buddy. His name was Adrian. He's now, is he in seminary in Philadelphia? Yeah, in seminary. But he kind of got us hooked onto it, and so we used to play together. So I did know he played guitar, but I did not know he played for the
church.
church. That's kind of cool.
yeah, so it was mainly just the Hispanic mass. It was only the Hispanic mass I played, so they have some pretty fun songs. So I enjoyed it. Besides going to church, playing with them was pretty fun. But yeah, anyways, though, like it was really like uphill and downhill ever since high school of like really loving God, really being close to him, and really turning my back on him, just purely ups and downs. And I've experienced those downs, especially during high school. Like I remember looking back at it in like the soccer group chat. I've said atrocious things on there. I've sent pictures that I regret, to say the least, like the worst kinds of pictures, like memes, jokes, and at the time they were funny. Like, yeah, he's laughing now, but looking back at it, God bless my soul for like doing that stuff. It was crazy, but yeah, but yeah, I've had ups and downs, and it was kind of like bouncing between those two. And I was at Wallace State Community College for a year, and just to instead of 2 years doing it at one. And when that ended, I went to UAH, and there I joined the Catholic group up there, and again, forced myself to join, forced myself to do their Bible studies, forced myself to go to mass, and it was like right when I joined, it was an uphill. Like I made a group of friends up there. Two are like besties with me, and we're all like literally working our way up to God, and it's amazing to have those kind of friends because it's like you're all in the same place together and you're all growing with each other. And you're just not looking at yourself grow, but at your friends growing. And it's like bouncing off of each other, inspiring each other. And that's something I've always kind of longed for in my heart, really. Like friends that can actually encourage me to do that stuff. And I'm sure Biz found you guys for that too.
Yeah,
But
I was talking to him because he's involved with Focus Discipleship down there and stuff too, and so I was talking to him about articles and everything, and so that always reminds me of the virtuous friendships articles that we talk about like all the time. You know, when you have somebody that can encapsulate, I think like the best kind of friendship is somebody that encapsulates all three of the kinds: utility, pleasure, and virtuous friendship. Is it virtuous? But I always get that one. Yeah, virtuous.
Friendships.
Because they're like you should be able to have all three of those with like somebody who's a really really good friend. But yeah, so I experienced the same thing here for sure. But yeah.
Yes, so Gio, we're excited to have you on the podcast. Just thankful that you came down, drove all the way from. Did you drive from Huntsville or Coleman? From Huntsville to Tuscaloosa
At 2
And-
a.m. in the morning, you got
Yeah.
here last night.
Gio, we are excited to hear your quote. So, would you like to introduce the quote for us today?
yeah, it's those who find no joy in spiritual things must resort to physical pleasures.
Okay.
And that quote comes from, you said, Aristotle.
Yeah, I found it in my book I'm reading, How to Think Like Aquinas, and it was a quote from St. Thomas Aquinas, which was a quote from Aristotle.
Very
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, so originally, I think you sent this on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. And we were at Massa Meal, which is a thing we have on Sunday nights here at Bama Catholic. And this guy over here was not sure how he felt about this quote. Cole, on the other hand, they were basically on the two extremes.
Yeah, we were definitely, but I think we're horseshoeing. Like, I think, like, looking back on that conversation, I think we're horseshoeing a little bit with, like, we're on two extremes, but it's kind of like that bend where, like, we're very close to one another. But, yeah, continue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
hearing them, and then I was just sitting there in the middle, I could see Cole over on one side, like, why are we doing this quote? Or, sorry, the opposite, like, he really liked the quote, and then Evan over here, like, I don't even know if I want to do this quote. And then me in the middle, I'm like, this could be a great conversation. So, and for me, I was just talking about it before we got on the podcast of how do we go through this? Because Evan, when he was talking about it, was like, well, we should always have spiritual joy within our faith. That's kind of where Evan was like, I don't know, like, if we don't have spiritual joy, like, what are we doing? That's where he kind of questioned it. And so for me, looking at it, I was considering, well, what if someone is interacting or practicing some type of spiritual life that is not Christian, not Catholic? And that's where I think this quote kind of comes in. That's how I see what Aristotle and how St. Thomas Aquinas was looking at it. We have a lot of different religions in the world, and throughout history, there's been a ton of religion, a ton of different quote-unquote gods that people have tried to worship and put their faith in and follow their quote-unquote teachings. And, I mean, I was mentioning, the extreme, what did you call it, Evan? Extreme forms of yoga. How did you call it? Extreme meditations on yoga? Is that what you...
I don't remember what word I used.
Yeah, but
I'm not sure.
That's-
I don't remember saying extreme yoga earlier.
There's-
but anyway.
there's Buddhism, Hinduism, and all these different religions, and we know as Christians, as Catholics, that that's not the true religion. That's not the true God that they're following. And that's where I think of people who interact with these religions and don't receive spiritual joy. Because if they don't have the true source of joy, which is God, our God, then they're not going to be able to receive that joy. And that's where they're putting all this time, all this effort into, oh my gosh, I want to turn my life around. I want to interact with the spiritual and find that sense of purpose. And then when they do that in those religions that aren't the true religion, they're left lost. And then what do they turn to? They turn to the pleasures of the body, of the physical realm. And I know, Gio, you want to go into that. So just from my standpoint going in first, I think of like all those different religions, and then Gio is going to dive into the physical realm.
Yeah. So like to begin with, like I'm thinking of it now, and like context is always a key thing for any kind of quote, verse, or whatever. Like the context, again, it originates with Aristotle, and Aristotle, as we know, and as St. Thomas coined him, he's a philosopher. St. Thomas calls him the philosopher, but I believe he was like, at the time, he was like, denounced paganism and realized that the one God must exist.
Yes, he did it. I think at this point, yeah.
Yeah. But like, either way, though, he was a philosopher. He was always thinking. And maybe to him, that's the kind of stuff spiritual things is. Because obviously, the physical pleasures, are still the stuff we see to this day: the sex, alcohol, drugs, all the stuff that satisfies our bodies. But in general, like those physical pleasures, again, they don't only last for a short amount of time, but they don't last forever like the spiritual things. And that's, I think, what Aristotle realizes that, for example, reading a book, taking your time to think, the general spiritual things, not specifically to God yet, but those stuff, even he realized is beneficial long term. And moving on to St. Thomas Aquinas and how he not only uses that stuff in other teachings of Aristotle, but uses them to like boost and improve Catholic theology, philosophy, all that agenda, all that stuff. And to him, we begin to name these spiritual things as God. And to this day, it's, for example, prayers, going to mass, reading the Bible, the godly things. And that's something that, for me, sticks out because, again, this statement, the quote is a literal statement. It's not an advice. It's a warning saying those who find no joy in spiritual things must resort to physical pleasures. It's warning us about that, telling us to, hey, we need to go to these spiritual things. Because in this time and culture, like I said, it's driven by sex, alcohol, and drugs. We find no benefit in that spiritually or physically. It's just something to like take the pain out of us for a moment. But as someone who's like, again, like kind of had my conversion pretty much, it's so nice and like rewarding for my health, mentally, physically, everything, to find God in my spiritual life. And that's why that quote really hit me, because there's like finding God and focusing on him is the spiritual things that I find joy in. And that warning of, if you don't, you're going to find pleasure in the physical pleasures, that is what I really see in this today's culture. And it's just not good. Downhill.
Yeah. And I actually
We're-
go for it. Do you have something to say?
No. So I know it's still Lent. What would be the line here on whether he's about to break out a definition?
I was about to say the same thing. I
A
was
million
like,
percent.
what is the odds Cole pulls out a definition?
Okay, so wait, before if it's joy, because I have, what's the definition?
Find.
Find?
Your definition is find?
I'm defining find.
All right.
I have
I have
I have a route with this. I have a route with this.
Go.
Okay, first the definition of find.
This
Of
is
course,
terrible.
I do it every episode. Y'all just know this is tradition at
You know
this
what?
point.
We're gonna get
Like,
gonna
expect
get a
it.
thesaurus or like a dictionary. We should just get like a dictionary for the table. And just
Oh, that'd be sick. Then I
have
wouldn't
him-
have to use my
so
phone.
he doesn't.
Well,
have to
it
have
wouldn't
his
be for the
phone.
table. It would just be for Cole.
That's
Yeah.
true. We'll
Yeah.
just put it on.
Just
that
say Cole's
edge.
dictionary on
Yeah.
the front. I like it. Yeah, let's do that.
We'll get him a customized case for it, like a Bible cover where it's just his dictionary.
Yeah. So I think when
His
Evan and
birthday.
I had the original disagreement about this quote to begin with, he said, it's impossible for there not to be joy in spiritual things. And I said, I agree with you. I think it is impossible, but let's look at the definition of find. The definition of find is the recognition or discovery of something that is already present, okay? Which would already, it's implying, in a sense, the joy is there. And right, to say that there is no joy in things is wrong, in spiritual things is wrong, because the fruits of the Holy Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So when we talk about this quote, I don't think Aristotle and St. Thomas Aquinas are referencing that there isn't joy in spiritual things. Like you said, that's impossible and would be wrong, right? There is. It's just the recognition of it. It's the same thing when we talk, again, about the bridge chasm argument. Like, it's the recognition that the bridge is always there. You know, when we turn away, we have to come back and find it again. We have to recognize it again. And it's the same thing here with joy, right? I always think of the Josiah Queen song, "Can't Steal My Joy." You can't take it away from somebody. It's there. It's always present because it is the fruit of the Holy Spirit. So the route I wanted to take with this quote is talking about spiritual dryness. So what is spiritual dryness?
So desolation, like are you like when we talk about because I know we've had conversations about like periods of desolation.
Yeah.
Like, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
when you have that, just, I guess, yeah, when you have the periods of desolation, you're just like kind of uninterested and you're not like, so air quote, feeling something. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What do y'all think? What is spiritual dryness?
I think you just said it. Personally, I mean,
Yeah. Well, like, so like,
Is it a bad thing?
oh,
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
okay, so that's not what
now
it is.
that's
That's
an
a different
interesting question.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to like get a consensus of the definition of it.
So is spiritual dryness a bad thing? So the consensus definition is kind of like, yeah, we go through these periods of desolation, right? That like we're not feeling it. Maybe it's just like going through the motions, don't feel in tune with it. Prayer life gets, hits a downhill. You really got to kick it in. And for me, those periods have always been challenging. I think they're good and bad is hard to decipher, right? So I'm I'm watching Star Wars right now. And so like one of the main points of the episode arc that I'm watching is that like without, and quote Martin Luther King, but without the light there cannot be dark, without the dark there cannot be light, right? So like without the good there can't be bad, without the bad there can't be good. If there was no delineation between those two things, then objectively there would be no good or bad. And so when I look at like spiritual desolation or like periods of dryness, like are they necessary? Yes, absolutely. Because without desolation, there can't be fulfillment. There can't be prosperity. There can't be like abundance. But at the same time, like, is it good? Is a bad thing good because it makes you recognize the good things? Like, no, it's still bad. Like, I still don't like it. Like, I still don't like when we do our Ramadan fasts. Like, it's super good, but in the moment, like, it's bad. Like, I do not like it. I hate it, in fact. But like, it makes that food at 7-Eleven so much better. Like not the restaurant.
The time
7-Eleven
when the sun
PM, it makes that food so much better, so much sweeter, so much more fulfilling. So I think yes, necessary, but like that doesn't mean it has to be good.
I think the way that I would go about it is we talk about the world. We see a lot of polarization. There's either black or there's white in terms of one side or the other. And what people fail to realize, and I think comes into the circumstance, is there is a ton of gray area. There's a ton of gray area. Spiritual dryness, I think, comes in the gray area. It is, in general, a neutral thing. The way that you handle it, the way that you go about solving your spiritual dryness is where it becomes the good or bad. If you see spiritual dryness as which a lot of people do, a reason they think that God doesn't exist, that God's not here, it's gone. Like, I don't feel anything. There's nothing there. That's just a lull. It's dryness. God doesn't exist. So I'm going to choose, I don't need to put any effort into this anymore. That clearly, we would all say, is a bad thing. Now, as Evan, I don't know what he's doing with his microphone right now, but if we see spiritual dryness as a new challenge, a new opportunity to grow in our faith and to put more trust and faith in God, and say, God, I know you're here. I read your word. I have heard your teachings. I know that you are here no matter how I feel. And it's a chance to make that choice even further to put your trust into God. And so that is the good thing of spiritual dryness, even though it, in general, I would say, is just right in the neutral, depending on how we handle it.
Yeah, and like to me, like I'm really like bouncing on his idea of that at the end of the day, it's a bad thing. But like I hate that I can't remember the saint's name, like her name, but there's a saint, I forgot who it was, that supposedly there was a period of like a long time where she prayed and could not hear anything. And she became a saint. I, I hate that I can't remember her name, but like good and bad, by definition, bad is what it really is, just the absence of good. And again, it's that, like you were saying, the desolation, the absence of a feeling. And by definition wise, it kind of would have to be bad. But it's like all the good things in this, or all the bad things in this world, like C.S. Lewis's problem of pain. about how
Such a good
focus.
book, by the way. That
I
I
love
want to recommend that one after we finish Mere Christianity. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's a good book.
But yeah, like one of the things he says, like how you were saying that the bad in this world is used, the bad stuff is used to create a greater good in general. Like, for example, if someone's struggling with financial issues or mental issues, God is giving them that struggle, not just because he knows that this person can overcome it, this person has the strength to overcome it, but also so that at the end of the day, when they overcome it, they gain confidence in themselves, they gain a greater strength in themselves and become a better person. Like how you were saying, a necessity.
Yeah. So, I could have sworn
Uh-oh.
maybe Tuesday, maybe last Tuesday,
Uh-oh.
we had a really long conversation. Do you remember what like one of the
He's
main
patting his back right now.
stipulations
Just letting y'all know.
was of that conversation? Something about policy making
Oh my gosh.
or
Are
decision
you
making.
testing me right now?
Something about them never being neutral.
A policy can never be
A
neutral.
decision can never be neutral.
You were playing devil's advocate in this conversation. Though.
But
It can't.
didn't we
It
determine?
can't. Yeah, it can't be neutral.
So
Oh no.
can other things be neutral? Where does neutrality end? And this is a whole different conversation, but I'm
do you think that neutrality exists, Evan?
poking.
Wait, why
you.
are we talking about
I'm
neutrality
poking
right now? What are you
'Cause
referencing?
Nazario
as?
said that spiritual desolation he believes is a true neutral.
Oh no, I disagree. I actually disagree with all you guys on this whole thing.
Oh, good.
All right,
night.
give your
No.
point.
I think it's a good thing.
I just am poking him. Don't
Yeah.
worry. I'm just poking him.
No,
Well,
I
I'm
think
sure
it's a
we'll
good thing.
discuss this in depth in discipleship.
Yeah, I'm sure
but-
at some point.
yeah.
Yeah. But okay, my turn. Awesome. I'm excited about this.
So you're a gooder?
I think it's a good thing. Yes.
Interesting. Wait, hold on. I have a question.
Okay.
Do you think it's a good thing because of the value of it, or do you think it's a good thing to like because of the nature of it?
That makes it a little more complicated. Let me think.
Because that's I think we've all agreed that it's a good thing because of the value that it brings.
Okay.
But is it a good thing because of the nature of it, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then I'm agreeing with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Because the
His
thing I
argument
use-
was ended before it even.
Well, but I
started.
still have things to
Look
say
at that.
about it though.
Well,
Like,
so
I'm not
the
disagreeing.
thing I think about is like, okay, so like a car accident that brings a family together, right?
Yeah.
Because like a family member dies or something, right?
Uh-huh.
So like car accident definitely bad. Like the nature of it bad. Like that's a terrible loss. But the value of the car accident is good because it brings the family closer together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that's an extreme situation. Like obviously you lose a family member or something, right? And whatever. But like that's where I think of like value versus nature, sort of.
Yeah.
Right? So shoot.
So I want to talk about a couple things here with all of this. Let's separate what God's will is and what, like, I think there's this big confusion in society. I hear it a lot of times, and I was talking to you about it. It's the difference between God's will and what God allows to happen, right? And so a lot of the times when we reference bad things in our life, a lot of people are like, if it's God's will, like something good's going to come from it. And I was like, that's just so not true. I was like, God is allowing these things to happen in your life. Like, obviously, God doesn't want you to hurt. God doesn't want you to feel bad. But he's allowing those things to happen because we have to experience our own life. We have free will. We have a decision to choose right and wrong. And so when we say God allows things to happen, it's for the betterment of ourself is to experience these things. Because if without that, and if God was willing this in our life, then he would be willing that badness, that bad or whatever to happen, which is not the case. God is never willing that. He's just allowing these experiences to happen so we can grow from it, if that makes sense. Now,
Is God allowing things and his will intertwined?
Hold on. I think this should be, at this point, let's put a heresy check on this.
oh
Just-
no.
If we're wrong, of course we can't.
Are you agreeing with me though?
Well, I think it's...
I don't think they're separate. God allowing things, that is his will. Like, those are intertwined.
Yeah, I would need to do more reading because my thought would kind of align with, right, God is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, right? So in that case, like, allowing something to happen, that means, like, yeah, kind of like you're willing it to happen. But at the same time, right, like, God wills are good. So I think it factors back into, like, value versus nature. Bang, look at this. So, like, God, if he's willing something bad to happen, he knows it's because of the value that it brings in the long term, right? Again, like, we go back to, like, okay, I'm in pain now. Like, this hurts now. Like, I lose a loved one, I fail a test, I don't graduate in time, knock on wood somewhere. Right. So like, something like that happens, that bad thing happens that God allows or God wills or whatever, right? It's all part of his plan, right? That's what we always say, like, this is a part of God's plan. But at the same time, that provides value in other areas of my life. Like, yes, okay, I have a family member that died, but I value my other ones so much more now. I spend time with my other ones. Yes, I didn't graduate from college, but allowed me to see that maybe college wasn't for me, or maybe that's not where I was supposed to be in my life, right? So, like, again, nature of the decision that God is allowing, nature of the thing that God is allowing or willing could be bad, but the value of it could be good, right?
I guess like my argument with this whole thing, and again, I will keep the heresy check
Yeah.
on
And again,
for
it's
the next like 10
it's
minutes
God, so
as
yeah.
we're talking about
Yeah.
it, because I don't want to like.
We're gonna
Oh,
throw Cole out. I'm
yeah.
gonna get Father Mugaga just to take him out of the church.
Yeah, but anyways, like, let's take it to the extreme, right? That we as a world right now, we struggle with a big problem known as abortion, right? And I don't think you could say it's God's will for these abortions to happen. I think God is allowing these things to happen. Like, we have to, I don't know how to experience this. Like, let's say like a tornado happens, right? And it goes through an entire town and kills everybody. I don't think it's God's will for everybody to die. And I also think maybe by saying God's will, it's almost kind of like we're putting a time on God. Like, God in this moment is deciding this, but God isn't bound by time. God is outside of time. He is, like you said, omniscient, omnipotent, and oh my gosh, I forgot the other one.
Omnipresent.
I was about to
Omnipotent.
I was about to pull a Cole, but I realized that my phone is being used right now, so I cannot pull up a definition.
So I have a
Yeah,
question.
like, I think we should define will and allow. So go ahead.
So a lot of the things we're going into is active decision making versus like events that occur, right? So like for abortion, right? So like that factors into our free will. So like in that case, I would say God is allowing it because he's given us freely, again, the gift of free will, which states that we can make decisions based on what we think to be right and wrong, right? But we also have to listen to the consequences and adhere to the consequences of those. And eventually, if the consequences of those are we go to hell, that's a consequence we have to face, right? So I think that's kind of like a difference, right? Is that if we are actively picking something, right? Like, the nature and the value are both bad. Like, for abortion, the nature of abortion is bad. The value of abortion is bad. There's no good that will ever come out of an abortion or has ever come out of an abortion. And there will continue to be no good that ever will or does or has ever come out of abortion, right? That's just factual.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when you look at other things, I think there can be good that comes out of things that are not active decisions, that are not active decisions of sin, right? Because again, sin is turning away from God's will.
Yeah.
That's the definition of, well, not the definition, but that's a definition of sin, right? So active decision versus things that are happening in life, like a tornado. We can't control a tornado.
Yeah.
God controls a tornado, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. God controls a tornado. Go after it. I'm not going out there and stopping a tornado because, again, like, if God had given us the power to stop a tornado and we're like, classic, what's the trolley problem? Like the classic trolley problem, like, I can stop this tornado or like let it roll through a town. Obviously, God is wanting us to stop the tornado had he given us that ability. But, we cannot stop tornadoes. And as such, I don't think that's necessarily something that like God is, like that is something that we need to like worry about per se, right?
And like another thing that I just kind of thought of that you kind of helped me think for using the term of will and allowed. I think the perfect example would be people getting sent to hell. God does not will people to be abandoned from him. Like, again, bad is the absence of good. God is good. Hell is the absence of God, aka hell is bad. By definition, hell has to be bad. So again, using that as an example, God does not will people to go to hell, which is bad. but God allows it.
Yeah.
To come in right here, because I think it adds to what you're saying. The definition of allow is to give someone permission to do something.
So free will.
God
Yeah, like
has
by merit of free will, He's
Yeah.
given
Yeah.
us permission
Yep.
to do all.
So his
do things,
God's
yeah.
allowance is giving us permission to make whatever choices that we want.
It's like the second hand to free will.
Yeah, which is why I like the word like allowance. Like that's why I like to say if like God is allowing this to happen in my life, God is allowing my free will, God is giving me the ability to make this decision. And so that's why a lot of the time, like when I reference something, like again, and I think it does kind of like come back to even decisions that aren't inherently like good or bad, like the decision of which college should I go to. Like if you're looking at that, if God is going to allow you to make that decision, you know, and God isn't going to will you to choose this place. God is allowing you to choose that place. And so that's a lot of the time I like to reference, you know, God's allowing you. But like you can pray and you can like spend time with God. And I think maybe you'll find that you're called to one way or another, but God allows you to make those decisions freely. But anyways, this is a big sidetrack to where I was going with the whole thing, because we were talking about spiritual dryness. So I'm going to get back to that really quickly. So what is spiritual dryness? We defined it. You know, we talked about it. And I think we came to the conclusion that it's a good thing in the long run, right? And even by
disagree.
nature.
No, I don't think it's a good thing in the wrong run. I think it's still neutral. So I'm not agreeing.
It can't be neutral.
Can't be.
It can't be.
We're gonna discuss this on another episode.
I don't. It can't be
just
neutral.
keep going with your.
But
point.
anyways,
just keep going with your point.
So the thing about spiritual dryness, I'm gonna use a metaphor because I like using metaphors. Let's talk about a fire, right? What do you use when you build a fire?
Wood.
Wood. What type of wood?
Dry wood.
Dry wood. So what happens to wet wood when you try to light it?
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Right? And so if we talk about finding no joy, those who find no joy in spiritual things resort to physical pleasures. Let's refer.
Are we wet wood?
Hold up. I'm referencing the quote. The people who are searching for this joy, we're going to refer to the fire as this joy, right? The people who are searching for this joy and physical pleasures are coating themselves in water, and they're the wet wood. So what happens when you try to light that, right? This joy, this fire isn't going to work. It's not. It turns into smoke. The fire just dies. That's what happens, right? You can't actively pursue joy if you're not pursuing these spiritual things. So now let's think about this, right? When you switch to this spiritual dryness and you're just dry wood, you put the dry wood in there first. You add like the little sticks first, and then you put the log in last. The log is that moment when the fire is lit, you prepped it, and now it's going to be able to catch this big log. In this big moment after you've been spiritually dry, and this takeover, when you finally do get this fire lit again, you experience this huge explosion of joy, and now you're there. And so I think this is kind of defining what our faith is as a whole, right? It's this spiritual journey. If there weren't up and downs, free will would cease to exist, right? We wouldn't be having the ability to choose God or not to choose God, because if it was always good, then we would never turn away.
If there wasn't good versus bad,
Yeah.
not ups and downs.
Yeah. And so this is what makes our faith journey so interesting. And again, there's the reason I said if God allows things to happen, like God allows us to go into this spiritual dryness. One of my pet peeves with some like forms of prayer sometimes is feeling searching. Right? If you're feeling searching in prayer and that's your intention behind your prayer, then that's not good. Like you should not be searching for feelings every time you're praying.
It's good for a phase.
Yeah.
Right. So like I always struggle with that because it's good. It is good. Like you talked about, like in a period of dryness, or like in a period where you really need to rekindle, like that emotional response is good, right? Like when I go to search and I see people I'm actually surprised you've never been, now that you know Cole. So I expect you to be there next semester.
I can invite you to search next time. People come from different campuses. You should come.
Yeah. So like when I go to search and I see people who like, and my second point is I disagree kind of with your point of like spiritual dryness and people who are like, that's a very similar space for me, like spiritual dryness and people who are like experiencing this, resorting to physical pleasure. That's a very similar sphere. But like people come to church and they get this like spiritual high, this like this huge emotional response, this goodness, these feelings of happy and joy, and that's what rekindles those emotions. That's what triggers reversions. That's what triggers conversions. And you know, I can speak from personal experience on how it's affected my life and how it's affected people who are very, very, very important to me. But like, you know, you need that. Like, you know, again, you shouldn't be searching for it all the time.
That's my point.
Yeah, that shouldn't be goal A1, but it's absolutely vital at some point. Because like you said, you get worn out. Like, you know, if the whole entire school year was just like, you know, study, and then no tests, like it was just studying, it would be brutal because there's no payoff. There's no nothing. Like you don't like pass a class. You don't do anything. Like you never get rewarded.
And you never actually see how much your study paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, yeah, if you never have, like, a little bit, even if it's a little bit of a payoff, if you never have, like, a little bit of response, you can get worn out. You can get, like, you know, despondent. You can get really stuck in a hole. And so that little instance of physical joy, of physical emotion is super, super helpful.
So you disagree with my wetwood analogy?
Yeah, I do.
I'm kind of curious. I don't know why.
I was making faces over here. I don't think that saying like someone who's not chasing the spiritual world is like wet wood. I can use it like me as an example. Like
yes, because if you're chasing those things, it doesn't mean you can't be lit on fire still.
Yeah, but that's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying you're okay. But when I'm referencing the wetwood, I'm talking about people who are chasing the physical pleasures. Okay, they're not only not chasing God, but they're chasing the physical pleasure, and that's what you're doing.
They can't be lit on fire.
I'm not saying I know you can't, but there's always that like when you can be lit on fire.
There's some resistance.
Yes, but like when that fire does happen, there's normally like it's not just this sudden, you know, it like when that happens and you like have this switch, there is something that allows you to try off. There's some moment, something that clicks with you. And that's where we talk about the Holy Spirit. I think it's that drying of the wood, and then that's when we can be lit on fire.
I think I might have a way to help it. We're always dry. We always can be lit on fire. But what do you need to set it to get it going? You need paper. You need paper to set on. Something like that. So I would say, to make your analogy better, is we're all dry. We all have the potential to be set on fire. But when we're chasing those other things, we don't have the paper to get the fire going. And like you said, the Holy Spirit can throw the paper in there to get the fire blooming. Is that the right word? Blazing? Blooming? Sure.
Yeah, something like
that. But
I
think because if you're saying you're wet, then it's impossible to... Is it possible to light a wet wood on fire?
I think there's some resistance, right? So like drawing back to me, like, you know, for years chasing just, not Christ, physical things, right? And so, like, I look back on that time, and I'm like, okay, what did I really need? Because I wasn't chasing these things. But then there was a point in my life where I actively decided to chase Christ and chase these things. Now, was there a period of resistance? And I've talked to you all about this. There was a period of resistance. There's a period of, like, you know, you try your best, you fail, you try your best, you get better at failing, you try better, right? And then eventually you get better at it. And so, yes, there's a period of resistance of kind of, like, pushback, right? Because it's a complete transformation of your life. But at the same time, like, I feel like my life burns very bright now, and I feel like I'm able to contact with people and things like that.
To help, hold on.
I have a
to help go along with this. When you see a fire, sometimes the paper sets on and then it goes out really fast before the wood is able to be caught, and for the wood to have the true fire. So what Evan's saying is, like, there was some paper there, but then the paper went out really fast. But now the paper allowed the wood to be fully caught. Now the wood is the source. Like, the wood has the fire now. And that's where the fire is coming from. It's from the wood.
We literally are having, this is the same metaphor. You're using paper instead of water.
It's a horrible
It's-
metaphor.
The reason I'm saying
whose
this,
metaphor is better?
This both of them
well,
are terrible.
I'm thinking, well, the reason I'm saying this with wet
They're
wood
equally
is like,
bad.
I'm not saying that like God is always trying to light this fire, and this resort to physical pleasure and pursuing these other things are making that fire like it's struggling to start and it's turning to smoke,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm also not saying every piece of wet wood can dry. I'm not saying it's impossible for the fire to light. I'm just saying with this pursuit of these physical pleasures, you are kind of soaking the wood and not giving it a chance to dry, to be lit. And so with the paper, like it's literally the same thing. With the paper, if it's being lit and it's not catching the dry wood, then it's the same thing. Like we are making the exact same metaphor.
So
I disagree with him saying they're terrible.
let's-
I think they're pretty darn good.
I think it makes sense, honestly.
Let's move on from the wet wood.
Well, I want
analogy.
Gio to give a chance to see his input on this.
On the wet wood.
Yeah, on this whole thing.
I mean, I see what like. Honestly, I think I like his more, but like I can see what you're saying about wet wood because like it's not you're lighting wet wood. It's more of the phrase you're lighting wood that's wet, the wood itself. Because in that it's kind of like a weird phrasing, but it's like
That's what
keeping
you're
in
trying to say
mind
with it.
exactly like the wood.
I understand why you're
has
Cole's friend now.
Like the wood has potential to not be wet anymore. It's like that kind of thing you're trying to poke at, right?
Yeah. Like it is again, bridge. The bridge is always there, right? The wood is always has potential to get dry, right? I'm referring to the wet wood as the time when we're turned away from the bridge and we're not looking at it. That's all it is. And then when we turn back around and actually get a chance, or like we have this whisper in our ear or some sort of moment of conversion, or the Holy Spirit, like really like we finally get to experience this big thing. And again, this feeling, and we like, oh, we hear a whisper and we turn around. That's when our wood dries, and that's when we can cross the bridge and go further down that way. And so that's when I'm saying that's when that fire is lit. And so that's all I was getting at with the whole thing.
All right. Let's we'll come back to final thoughts and stuff at the end of the episode, but let's get into personal prayer practice. So we kind of referenced this last week in the episode. Cole's very excited. I think Gio, you'll be excited now that we
now
know
that I know
you're
that
in a
you
band and all
yeah
that.
played for
Um,
church. That's kind of cool.
Us with our terrible gifts will be less so. But Cole, take us away on your personal prayer practice for this week.
So last week we challenged you guys to vocal prayer, and that was just in the form of praying your prayers out loud, whatever it was. And I didn't discourage because I'm not going to discourage like singing because that would be wrong. But I wanted to like focus on vocal prayer last week and encourage singing this week. And so what does that look like? You know, a lot of the time when we talk about Christian music, it gets very cringy, I think is what people get cringed out by it.
Side note, fun fact that I just kind of
Oh, this is
love
about to be
saying.
insane.
I cannot listen to the average Protestant like songs, like the basic ones, like "Here I Am to Worship," the very stereotypical
Yeah.
ones. Like for some reason, like I don't know, I like put them in the car. I listen to an instrumental version, love it. Put on the part where they're singing. It's not that I hate. I can't listen to it. Anyways, carry on.
Yeah, and so I think it's definitely very preference based because I think there's a lot of different Christian music out there. Like there's some artists nowadays that are doing this more not modernized, I guess, different sound in Christian music and making it more like relatable. And the reason I'm talking about Josiah Queen at the moment right now, and I love him. I think his message is great. He's very much modernized this experience of Christianity and made it very like impactful to the listener, like every single lyric, every single song. And I love how he starts pulling these Bible stories now. Like his song "I Am Barabbas" is all about
It's a great song,
the
yeah.
crucifixion of Jesus through Barabbas's eyes.
Also, Chris Renzema is another one who I
Yes.
really like
Yes,
right
he's awesome. He's got a song called Adonai, great
Mm,
song.
mhm.
He's got a song called Manna, great song. He's got a song called Faith, great song. And they all sound like, if you couldn't listen to the lyrics, they all sound like just regular music, and which is like, oh, okay, that's great. And so I encourage you guys to like find artists like that. And I'm not discouraging the other type of Christian music because I like listening to those too in certain circumstances. Like those are kind of fitting to like adoration, I would say, in a certain sense. Like there are some songs that don't You can't do that with, but like in the car, like turn on Chris Renzema, turn on Josiah Queen, turn on Brandon Lake. I think has some that are kind of like that too. Turn on Phil Wickham, like all of these different artists.
One day, Cole
Toby
will
Mac.
get into Toby
Yeah.
Mac.
I'll-
and it will
he's
be
awesome.
It'll be a great
he's a
day.
stud.
So, do y'all remember Mandisa?
Yes, love Mandisa.
So,
Saw her in
did you know
concert.
that
She's
she
awesome.
died?
What?
Like, yeah, a year ago. So,
Oh my gosh.
Good Morning. You know the song by Mandisa, Good
Great
Morning?
song.
Never heard of
Like,
Mandisa.
So good.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to when we're
I know who that is.
when we're out of copyright, we'll play Good Morning, and I think it has Toby Mac
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've listened to them. I think it was probably like 2014 at Winter Jam. They
Yeah.
played that song together. It was awesome.
So we used to my mom would like put that on in the morning as we were driving to school because it was a 4-minute drive to school, and so she would put on that song and we would love it. And then one day last year, she died April 18th of 2024, so a little under a year ago. But we'll always text like random things, in your family group chat when just something like completely out of the blue random pops up. And so my brother always does it, and he texted. He was like, "Mandisa died this morning." We all thought it was an April Fool's joke because it was close enough. We were like, "Oh yeah, you're right, Mandisa died." Sure. But like, yeah, like really cool. But like, she's the one I can point to as the start of this genre
Yeah.
of like.
Okay.
These people who are really breaking into like kind of the pop, the more recent type of like
Folk.
music. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she was definitely more poppy, right? But like it was very approachable, very like not over the top like God, Jesus, like ba 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 ba. But it was like very clearly Christian music and also very clearly an appeal to a younger generation, in addition to Toby Mac.
This is why I love Need to Breathe so much. I can talk about them all day long. I mean,
Gio, you want to tell us about some of your favorite Christian music?
Honestly, dog, honestly, I just really listen to the basic ones like Josiah Queen, Need to Breathe because of Bissot, and
Classic.
Ben Fuller is the guy that
Ben
I'm really like.
Ben
there's-
Fuller.
ooh, and Ben Rector, by the way, if you're gonna add somebody onto that list, he's awesome too.
Don't Ben Rector. It's hard. Ben Rector's
Really?
hard for me. Well,
Love
so
Ben Rector.
he is
Evan, this is not a Christian music opinionated.
no.
critique
No.
right here.
I love Ben Rector. Like I'm a Ben Rector super fan. Like I absolutely love. He's probably been one of my top 5 artists for years. Love all of his albums. But he is like Mormon, actually. Like he was raised Mormon. And
Ben
grew up
Rector?
as Mormon. Yeah.
What?
So
Would've
I
never
struggle.
picked that out.
I struggle sometimes
Okay.
with like the spiritual side of his music.
Okay.
I think he's a really great musician, really great family guy, really great dad. Like you can tell that from his songs, and just I've seen him in concert, and you can tell it just from like how he interacts. Fantastic human being. I struggle sometimes with the spiritual side because
Fair.
I know of where his viewpoint originates. Yeah.
Y'all should. Matt Kearney's really awesome too. If you haven't heard any of
He
his
is.
stuff, he's
He
really good.
Can't believe you didn't mention Chris Tomlin yet, Cole.
Chris Tomlin's pretty good. He's
just
got
because
some of the more
just
generic
because of
songs
his
though.
one song that
one
you showed
song.
me.
Chris Tomlin's one.
Modest is hottest.
Oh my gosh, y'all have got
That's-
to listen to that
that's
song.
insane.
It's so good.
That's insane.
He had to take it down though because he got death threats for it.
Ouch.
Yeah, he got death threats because they were like people were upset about it. But it's like so catchy. I don't know why. But I showed him. I'll have to show you this song after. I have it. So like
Cole, you
he-
should post this on our Instagram. Post Modest is hottest on the Instagram.
I'll do
page.
it for I'll do it for I'll do it for a thumbnail because I always attach a song.
Put it in
Well, the
background.
issue is it's not a song anymore. So I had to go to a website that downloaded it, and then I had to screen record it, and I put it over the thumbnail of his thing. So I have it from a church that recorded it before it got taken down. So I have probably one of the only recordings of that. So like most people can't even hear it. But anyways, back to the point. What were you gonna say on that?
No. Any last thoughts? Personal prayer practice, singing.
I got one. I mean, now I'm thinking about it, it's probably why I don't like, again, the stereotypical Protestant musics, like the worship songs. I think what's changed with like all of these new people is that it doesn't sound as much as they're kind of like shoving it in your face, because that's how most of, like, for example, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, they're door to door people. And sometimes even like the average Christian, they just go up to you and say, "Hey, have you heard about the good word of the Lord?" In general, it's not the Lord, it's not the talking about the Lord thing that's the negative. It's the getting into your privacy kind of deal that's
like immediately.
Yeah,
Which
that's what I'm noticing. My bad.
No, you go for it. I was just gonna say, like, it's very much like when we talk about spreading like Christianity and Catholicism in this instance, like when I was talking to you about this at one point. I was like, it's kind of a big turnoff for me when somebody comes up to me and is immediately like, "Have you heard about the good news of the Lord?" And I'm like, okay, like I want to get to know this
news,
person.
What Lord? Like, what do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Going on to your point, like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah, and so like Nazario and I have this motto, we have this, what's it called? what like
Mantra?
not mantra. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
know what you're talking
What's
about.
it called? What's the
Go gospel.
the go gospel? We call it the go
Catchphrase.
gospel.
Catchphrase,
Yeah. We call it go gospeling is what we do. And so,
These guys will not be quiet about their go gospel.
but
You taught us this. This is
this is from you.
Mr.
Incarnational.
I
Disciple.
have never
incarnational
used the word go gospel to
no,
teach these
no,
two
no.
in my life.
It is in the focus article.
But it's
You
what
taught
incarnational
us.
something
Incarnational
discipleship.
evangelization.
Incarnational evangelization.
But
This is on him, folks.
like the
Do
first
not
time
let
we
him
used
talk you out of
this
this.
plan of this idea of go gospeling, we were just hooping with some guys, and we just literally were like hanging out with them, and then we started getting into a conversation, and we were like, okay, maybe we should insert like, do you like, what clubs are you involved with, and like school, and are you involved with any religious organizations? And so like my method is first build some sort of, it doesn't have to be a long relationship, just build some sort of common ground. I just don't, I am not a big fan of the immediate, like, okay, boom, this is God. Like, no. Like, build into it, build this common ground, build trust with this person, because it definitely can be very intimidating when somebody immediately comes up like that, which is the same thing with what you're talking about
Yeah,
with that music.
like back to the point. Yeah, it's that thing of like, I think that's why I don't like it. It's just that it gives off that kind of energy with the basic average Protestant songs. It gives off that kind of energy with like the new people like Brandon Lake, Josiah Queen, the guys you mentioned. It all is kind of like an approach to, hey, this is something you like building a relationship kind of thing, something that you're used to, and introducing Christianity on top of it. And I think that's what's not only is making me like it, but I'm 100% sure thousands of other Christians in general starting to like this and get more into it. Because overall, I've noticed that for me personally, like the more I'm listening to this kind of music, Christian music, the more I'm just in general thinking about it, keeping it on my mind, keeping God on my mind. And that's something that's really helped me personally.
So, staying with you, you have brought us our shepherd of the week, as is traditional with our guests. So I think this is the first time we've had an unnamed character as our shepherd of the week. So get into it. Tell us. Well, I mean, if you tell us the story, we're gonna know why you picked him, right? Yeah. But tell us why you picked him, and why you brought him.
Yeah. So like to begin with the name thing, I just couldn't find a name, but he's the guy that, so there's, for context, there's a satanic temple
They call
mass
it a
group.
black mass.
Yeah. There's a satanic temple that kind of announced, hey, on this day, we're gonna be doing a black mass, and the Kansas government, or in the city specifically, was kind of like, they were kind of like really being like, I want to say like canceling it, but like saying, hey, be careful at the bare minimum. So there's a lot of controversy to begin with, and they ended up carrying it through. And I've
In other
done,
contexts, they had announced that they had, like on their website, that they had the Eucharist, that they had the big, what's the big one that the priest has? I know it's got a different name. It's the Eucharist, but it's called something in particular, and I forget what it is. The ministerial host, whatever. They had the priest. They had stolen the priest loaves from one of the churches, and so they had announced that, which is why there was more build up and tension on this whole thing. Yeah. So
I was watching Father David Michael's video on it, and he was kind of touching on that too, and maybe, them being Satanists, they'd probably lie. So, but basically, yeah, they carried it through. They went outside, they displayed to a crowd of Satanist host, and the guy, he threw it on the ground and was starting to stomp on it. But the Catholic guy, God bless his soul, that's a shepherd. He dived.
He's alive though, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. They didn't kill him, but
They tried
yeah,
to.
yeah, he dived onto the host, and I'm pretty sure he consumed it.
He did.
And the Satanist, because it's really interesting to watch, because the Satanist, he was punching him
And
and
kicking
like
him.
kicking him, like physical violence on him. And they kind of ended up having to pull him away, and everyone's kind of upset that they can't bully Jesus anymore. But yeah, that kind of show of courage and bravery among, I'm pretty sure, like hundreds
No, there
of
was like
Satanists.
100 people. There was like a couple hundred people there.
But that's just kind of why it shows them.
And to add a little bit more context, the day after that, he was at a hotel. The satanic, I don't know what you would even call him. Not the satanic.
Satanic.
I don't want to say priest because
I
I don't
think
know
that
if that's right.
honestly
Is that
might
a
be the word.
satanic
Leader.
priest? Leader?
Satanic
Satanic
Leader.
leader. Yeah.
Was in the lobby of a hotel and was proclaiming like evil things. And this kid came up to him and was like getting angry with him. And it was like a 17-year-old dude. And the priest punched him and he got arrested. So he is now in jail. So just a little more context on what happened with that thing.
Pray for him.
So, but yeah, that's our shepherd of the week. Do y'all have anything to say on that? I mean, I know y'all didn't know the story, so.
Just appreciate the will of this person to keep the sanctity of the Eucharist and to just raise it higher and to just show how important the Eucharist is to us, and that just the true belief that it is the true presence of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And it reminds me of the story of the discipleship article that we read about the young girl. I don't remember which country it was, but basically this foreign government had come in and come to their Catholic church and like destroyed it, and the host was just laying on the floor, and they were guarding this church, and somehow this young girl was able to sneak in. I think it was every single day,
Yeah,
consume one host every single day. And at one point, eventually, she kept doing it. Eventually, one point, she made a sound. One of the soldiers, I feel like it was a Chinese soldier, but I could be wrong. I'm sorry if that's
Yes,
wrong.
it was.
Chinese.
That's correct.
Okay. And the soldier sees her there, and they had told everyone, like, you're going to be killed if you try to do this. And he shot this little girl. And then, thankfully, after this, the guy converted.
Yeah.
Because he saw this dedication to the Eucharist. And so just the dedication to the Eucharist, very inspiring.
All right, so that is our shepherd of the week. We'll just do our final little thoughts on the quote and then conclude the episode. I'll just go ahead and start. Again, going back to the big question, what is spiritual dryness? If you are in a state of spiritual dryness, if you are stuck and you still are pursuing these spiritual things, but that fire is just not being lit, don't worry. Like it will be lit at some point. Like Nazario said, there will be fuel to the flames. Something will happen. So if you're a dry piece of wood and you're still pursuing the faith, continue to pursue the faith. At one point, you will be lit and it will get ignited again. So yeah.
I think for me, just covering up again, is something I realized also is Aristotle used two words for happiness in general: joy and pleasure, which kind of just further emphasizes the difference between the two things of spiritual things and pleasures, which is that true happiness you find in spiritual things, the stuff that will make you happy, the good kind of happy. While pleasures, it's really is just the bad kind of happiness. Because, like, again, like when I was talking about the sex, drugs, and alcohol, there's a reason why there's a thing called sexaholics, alcoholics, and drug addicts. But those people, I pray for their souls every day, and I just, whenever I think about that quote, I really hope that one of those people that are inside of that pleasures of the bodies, that they kind of escape it little by little. If it takes like years, then that'll be good. But if they find a way to encounter spiritual things and learn how to enjoy it, that's something that the world needs.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Evan?
I got nothing.
I would say my final thoughts is, you talked about it with physical pleasure, feelings we talked about a lot. Those things that we have, they are still the source from God. We are still created with those things. God, in moderation, wants to give us good feelings. He wants to give us pleasures in the right order, the right time, all of those things. And that's why when you have spiritual dryness, or when you don't have spiritual dryness either, it is always important to run back to the sacraments. Those we all can relate. When we walk out of the confessional, when we walk out of church after Mass, when we've received the Eucharist, when we walk out of adoration, there is something that there's no word to describe the feelings that you have. And it's not just a feeling, because I know some people will harp on the feeling. You just know in your mind as well. You know that you've just had a real encounter with Jesus. You know that you've truly gone through something that is so unique, so spiritual, while also so physical as well, combined into one that is just so beautiful and greater than anything else. That's why we run back to Mass. That's why Evan is a little bit frustrated, because we want to go to daily Mass in a couple of minutes, because we just want to go back to that so much. And that's not a harp on Evan. It's just because he's in the middle of time. He's trying to work through his timing right now. But it's because we want to go back to the Mass again, to be able to receive Jesus, because the sacraments are so sacred and so incredible. So if you're going through a period of spiritual dryness, I would say that's my one thing. Run back to the sacraments. And even if you're not in a spiritual dryness period, still run back to the sacraments. Cole, you want to close us out?
Yeah, I got you. So just remember, there's always an up to a down. You're never stuck at the bottom. So just keep pursuing it, and eventually you'll find your way back up to the top. Gio, thank you so much for coming on the episode. Loved having you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, this will be an awesome weekend. We're running a 5K tomorrow, so it should be a blast. So thank you guys so much for listening. We are the Lost Sheep Podcast. God bless.